Okay, hello everybody. This is week 7 lecture summary for bu1003 and bu1903. Previously, we've been in the area we called microeconomics, where we look at individual consumers and the firms' decision making and their interaction in the markets. From week 7, we will attend to macroeconomics, where we look at the economy as a whole. And since we are looking at the economy as a whole, the natural starting point would be have an index to measure the size of the economy, and we use GDP, gross domestic product, to measure the economy size. And we will also talk about the consumer price index. It is a price index that we use to measure the cost of living in the economy. So microeconomics is the study of how individual households and the firms make decisions and how they interact with one another and the market. In contrast, macroeconomics is the study of the economy as a whole. So its goal is to explain the economic changes that affect many households, firms, and the markets at once. So we know that for an economy as a whole, income must equal expenditures, because for any transactions, there's both a buyer and a sellers. And the buyer's spending should be the seller's. GDP, gross domestic product, is a measure of the total income and the expenditures of an economy. It is the total market value of all final goods and services produced within a country in a given period of time. So there are several important here. First one is the market value. Secondly is final goods and services. It's not the intermediate goods and services. And there's a geographical boundary here. It is within a country. For example, GDP of Australia, GDP of New Zealand, and it has a time frame as well in a given period of time. For example, year 2017, year 2016, the first quarter of year 2015, so on and so forth. Okay, so GDP is the market value of all final goods and services produced within the country in a given period of times. It is the market value, so output is valued at the market price. In a moment, we are going to go through an examples. Of all final, it records only the value of final goods, not intermediate goods, and includes both tangible goods like cars, like iron ores. It also includes intangible services like haircuts, house cleaning, etc. It includes currently produced, not transaction involving goods produced in the past within the country and in a given period of times. GDP includes all items, all goods and services produced in the economy and sold legally. Okay, every goods and service must be legal. So marijuana, if you produce marijuana in your backyard, it does not count towards the GDP of Australia. You should know this because it is illegal. So GDP excludes most items that are produced and consumed at home and that never enter the marketplace. For example, you clean your own house and over the weekends, then it does not count towards the GDP. However, if you ask somebody to clean the house for you and you pay these guys, then this counts towards the GDP. GDP excludes items produced and sold illicitly, such as illegal drugs. And for GDP, why we can classify it into 4 components. Consumption is, for example, the milk, bread that you purchased every day. Investment, investment by the firms, or you purchase a new house. This is counted as investment. Government purchases could be government say decided to upgrade the Bruce highways. So this is government purchases. Then export is export, take away import. Imports, they are goods produced in a foreign country but consumed domestically. So we got to take away this. Exports, they are goods and services produced domestically but they are consumed in the foreign countries. So we got to account for this. So Y is equal to C plus I plus G plus net export. Okay, when we talk about GDP, there are 2 types here. Nominal GDP. Nominal GDP values the production of goods and services at current price. Second type is real GDP. It values the production of goods and services at constant price. Okay. So an accurate view of the economy requires adjusting nominal GDP to real GDP by using GDP deflator. So what is GDP deflator? GDP deflator is a measure of the price level calculated as the ratio of nominal GDP to real GDP times 100. So it tells us the rise in the nominal GDP that's attributable to a rise in prices rather than a rise in quantities produced. So it's calculated using this formula: nominal GDP divided by real GDP times 100. So let's look at the examples here. Okay, suppose that this economy produced 2 goods, noodle and apple. In 2012, this economy produced 200 noodles and 300 apples. Similarly, for 2013, 14, 15, and 16. So now we know that this in these 5 years, this economy always produced 200 noodles and 300 apples. And intuitively, we know that in the real terms, this economy, the size of the economy doesn't change, right? In real terms. Okay, let's say the price of noodle is this many, and the price of apple is this in each year. Okay, now we can calculate nominal GDP first. So it's the market value of all final goods and services produced in this country within each year. So the market value of noodle is the quantity B3 multiplied by the price C3. That's the market value of noodle plus market value of apple. So it's B3 multiplied by D3. Let's do it for each year. And we see that nominal GDP increased from $1,610 in year 2012 to over $2,000 in year 2016. And you should know that here the increase in the nominal GDP is 100% due to the price increase. In real terms, the economy does not change. Okay, so let's calculate GDP. In order to calculate GDP, let's choose a base year. Suppose I'm choosing year 2012 as the base year. So now I want to evaluate the market value of noodles and the market value of apples using 2012 price. This is constant price. Okay, and before we do any calculation, note that since I'm choosing year 2012 as the base year, so in this year the nominal GDP will be the same as real GDP. This is by choice. Okay, market value of noodles, so it's B3 multiplied by price of noodles in year 2012, so which is C3, and I'm going to use dollar to fix the difference, plus market value of apple, so it's D3 multiplied by price of apple in year 2012, so it's E3, and I'm going to use dollar value to fix the difference. And not surprisingly, since I'm choosing year 2012 as the base year, GDP, real GDP of this year is the same as nominal GDP. Do it for other years. And we see that the real GDP tells us the true story, that this economy does not increase, does not change from year 2012 to 2016. Now we can calculate GDP deflator. It's nominal GDP, F3 divided by real GDP, times 100. So again, it's 100 in year 2012. That's because I choose year 2012 as the base year. Oops. Sorry. G3, okay, G3. Okay, so GDP deflator increased from 100 to 131, and we can calculate an inflation rate based on this GDP deflator. So the inflation rate is percentage change of the GDP deflator, so which is ending GDP, which is H4, minus beginning GDP H3, divided by beginning GDP H3, and times 100 to make it a percentage. So from 2012 to 2013, the GDP deflator increased by 62%. Similarly, okay, so that's the real GDP, nominal GDP, and the GDP deflator. And the second topic that we want to cover is cost of living and how do we measure it. Okay, so we usually observed in our economy that there's inflation. Inflation refers to a situation in which the economy's overall price level is rising, so everything becomes more and more expensive. And we can calculate inflation rate, which is the percentage change in the price level from the previous period. We use Consumer Price Index to measure the cost of living. It is a measure of the overall cost of the goods and services bought by typical consumers. And in Australia, it is ABS, Australian Bureau of Statistics, reports the CPI each month. It is used to monitor changes in the cost of living over time. So when CPI rises, it means a typical family will have to spend more dollars to maintain the same standard of living. Okay, there are several steps that ABS follow to calculate CPI. First, ABS will we will survey consumers to find out what is the basket that a typical consumer consumes. So determine which prices are most important to the typical consumers. So ABS identifies a market basket of goods and services that a typical consumer buys. And they do so by a regular consumer surveys. And then find the prices of the basket, of the items in the basket. Find the prices of each goods and services in the basket for each point in time. Then calculate the basket costs. Use the data on the prices to calculate the cost of the basket of goods and services at different times. And then choose a base year and compute the index. And again, the year that you choose as base year by default, by choice, has a CPI of 100. Designate 1 year as the base year, making it a benchmark against which other years are compared. Then calculate the index. And from the CPI, you can calculate the inflation rate, which is percentage change in the price index from the previous period. Okay, let's look at an example here. Okay, so now this hypothetical economy, produce noodle and apples. Okay, suppose that consumers in this economy consumes noodles, apples, and in addition also computers. And this economy does not produce computers, so it imports a computer. So price of computer is as follows. In year 2012 is 1,900. It drops to 1,300. Okay, a typical basket. A basket that a typical consumer consumes is 10 noodles, 15 apples, and 1 computer. So let's calculate the cost of this basket. So the first step of calculating CPI is determine the basket, and let's assume it's 10 noodles, 15 apples, and 1 computer. Second step is find the price. So we already got price here. Third step is to calculate the cost of this basket. So in 2012, it's 10 noodles, and the price of noodle is C3 plus 15 apples, 15 multiplied by E3, and 1 computer. So the cost of this basket in year 2012 is almost $2,000. Similarly do it for other years. Okay, let's choose base year. Let's choose 2012 as base years. So now CPI is 100 times the cost of this basket in that year to the cost of base year. So it's $3. Not surprisingly, it is 100 in year 2012 because I choose 2012 as the base year. And now we see that the cost of this basket decreased from year 2012 to year 2016, and this is due to a drop in the price of computers. I'm going to calculate the inflation rate. So it's percentage change of CPI. So it's ending CPI L4 minus L3 divided by L3, and let's times this multiply by 100 to make it a percentage, and there's a deflation, price drops each year. Okay, so now we calculate CPI and they calculate GDP deflator, and we should see that now we should see that it's different. We should see that it's different. It tells a totally different story. The GDP deflator says that the price is increasing, while CPI says that the price is decreasing. And this is due to the fact that these two indicators measures different things. Alright, you want to be aware of problems in measuring the cost of living by CPI. So the CPI is an accurate measure of the selected goods that make up the typical bundle, but it's not a perfect measure. Okay, there could be substitution bias. When there's a price increase, suppose say this basket has banana and apple. If apple price increases, and consumer will respond by substitute away from apples to bananas. So now bananas become relatively cheaper. So consumers is going to give up banana and buy less banana and buy less apple and buy more banana. And this is not captured by the CPI calculation because the basket is fixed. And CPI also does not account for introduction of new goods. So now if there's a new goods, say smartphone, iPhone is invented, and now you have more options. So the dollars you have in hand have more purchasing power in this sense. And this is not captured in the CPI calculations. And also CPI does not account for the unmeasured quality changes. For example, a computer 10 years ago would be quite different from a computer nowadays. A computer nowadays is much more powerful than computers 10 years ago, and this is not captured in the CPI calculations. Alright, that's all we want to cover this week in the lecture summary.